welcome back. Today I'm going to do my January to March books for you. One of my entire courses this term was purely theory based. So I did a lot of theory reading in like bits and bobs, articles from here, there and everywhere. So I've not got a lot of books from that to show you. So we've probably got about half the books we would usually have in this situation. It's also been like a busy time. I've collapsed into bed most nights, so I haven't had a lot of time for my own reading either. But having said that, I've chosen next month's. I'm going to do, because I've got essays pretty much for the whole of April and May, I'm going to do an April to June book. So you've got 3 months to read the next book, which is a good job because it is pretty huge. I've been wanting to read this book for ages. It's The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton. And it's a historical novel. I feel like I haven't read a historical novel for quite some time. Well, I say that there's actually one in this video, but like a properly historical novel. So this one's set in 1866. It's about a man who goes to New Zealand to make his fortune, and on the night of his arrival he stumbles across a tense gathering of 12 local men who have met in secret to discuss a series of unsolved crimes. And I hope that you guys will enjoy it, and we've not had anything like it, I think, so far in the book club. So yeah, but it is a little big. This one's obviously a hardback and I think it looks a little smaller in paperback form. I would love to hear your thoughts here. If you've read it before, please let me know your thoughts. You can email me at the email that I'm going to leave down below ahead of time before I film the video, or you can just leave a comment on the relevant video when it comes out. Now guys, oh guys, my sweet friends, I did not finish this book. I chose White Teeth for last month by Zadie Smith, a kind of cult classic. When it came out, I remember it being a big deal. My mum read it. Everyone read it basically, or everyone has since read it. And it sounds like the kind of thing I would love. It's set in London. It's about 3 overlapping families. Each family kind of represents a different culture and it follows them over multiple generations. I like something with a big ensemble cast. I like that kind of overlapping storyline, plot line. It's something I really enjoy. But I did not like this book. I have an amazing review by a girl called Chloe, so thank you so much for sending this in. It's very comprehensive and really, really good. And she said that she enjoyed the read in general, especially its use of comedic tone in discussing serious issues. The novel draws attention to the problem of upholding cultural traditions in relation to identity construction under multiculturalism, and it interrogates the notion of cultural purity, Britishness and Indianness in the case of one of the families, and that there are no essentialist cultural identities in this world that the book creates. She also does say, and this is one of my problems with the book, Chloe says that she thinks the novel problematizes the overly optimistic attitude of multiculturalism. And that it remains an ongoing and ambivalent task, and you're inevitably caught between 2 or more cultural values that can really affect your sense of self, and that, yeah, that multiculturalism isn't necessarily such an easy concept. You can't just live in one big happy family, and I definitely agree with everything that Chloe said there, but I would say that it kind of upholds the box ticking multiculturalism more so than it opposes it. I feel like the tone of the novel is very self-congratulatory, and that it like really shoehorns in lots of quite unnuanced stereotypes a lot of the time in the name of comedy, in a way that feels kind of snobby, or like, I don't know. Now, Zadie Smith was younger than me, I think, when she wrote this, so I mean, I couldn't write this, but I just have a really big problem with the kind of patronising, snobbish tone when the narrator is like looking at their characters, and it is applied kind of across the board, across all the different cultures. It's just something like, it's like the narrative is patting itself on the back for doing such a good job as it's writing. It's just horrible. It also is like way too it also feels very forced, a lot of the sentences, metaphors, all that kind of stuff. It kind of made me go, ooh, a few times. Like it reminds me of like Salman Rushdie or like Marquez or something, that kind of like big ensemble cast, interwoven style, bit of comedy, bit of black comedy, but really badly done. Oh guys, I just really didn't like it. It really felt like it was box ticking on purpose in a not nice way. And there's such good, you know, there's so many more amazing novels about immigration and multiculturalism and the difficulty of being between two cultures. And I think because I've read a lot of that literature from that genre, this really just fell flat for me. So I'm sorry about that, you guys. I don't know, I just couldn't find it funny. It just felt too forced. So I don't know what you guys thought. Please let me know if you think I'm just horrifically wrong. I feel like it did try and go into some of the issues of multiculturalism and being between two cultures and that kind of stuff, but I think the whole book could just so easily be co-opted into, look how wonderful and colourful London is, and I'm not buying it. So yeah, sorry you guys, didn't like it. Wish I hadn't chose it. Sorry for imposing it on anyone that tried to read this with me and did not like it. I really hope you did enjoy it if you read it more than I did, because I feel bad. I feel like pressure to choose good stuff. So yeah, sorry about this one, you guys. My more kind of literature based course at uni this term was African American music. I can't speak. Was African American literature and the problem of music. So got lots of books by some great African American authors here, and I'm just going to talk you through them kind of in the order I did them, because I think it's going to make most sense. So this is not really a piece of literature, kind of is, kind of isn't. This is W.E.B. Du Bois's The Souls of Black Folk. If you are doing any kind of study in African American literature, you kind of need to read this. This is like a canonical piece of work within that field, and or if you're just kind of interested in the history of African American literature, yeah, it's a great place to start, and yeah, a really important book to read within that context. But for pleasure, possibly not so much. It's a book of essays, although there is a short story in here. There's like a kind of eulogy to Du Bois's son. It was written quite soon after slavery, or slavery was abolished rather. So Du Bois wanted to show the kind of humanity of African American people and ex-slaves, and so a lot of this is obviously outdated. Like he was in some parts he's very much pandering to a white audience. In other parts he's really trying to kind of rally African American people and really kind of lift them up, but there's a mixture of the two in there. So some of it is a little outdated, but you really can't really blame Du Bois on that one. He's also very wordy and like verbose, which is it can lead to some quite funny sentences. But yeah, an immensely important piece of work if you are looking in that field at all. Then we've got The Autobiography of an Ex-Coloured Man by James Weldon Johnson. When it was first published, people thought it was a real autobiography because it was James Weldon Johnson didn't put his name on it, and the narrator goes unnamed throughout. And it's basically a first-person narrative. I can't remember when, 1912. So again, this is an early 20th century novel. A narrator who kind of goes, coming from a little town in Georgia, going through to trying to go to college, ending up in New York, ending up kind of living a very luxurious life for a bit with a rich man who was paying him to play the piano, and then going back down to the south, trying to compose music in an episodic kind of way. It's certainly kind of a precursor to things like Invisible Man, if you've read that. Then we have Corregidora by Gayl Jones. This book is really great. I think when Toni Morrison was working in publishing, she was the one who got this published. And this book certainly feels like a precursor to someone like Toni Morrison. It's about a woman called Ursa who is a blues singer. She is severely beaten by her husband and kind of suffers a serious fall down some stairs, and she ends up being infertile. She has to have her womb removed, which is obviously quite a symbolic thing for many women. She feels deeply connected to the women in her family, some of whom were slaves and had relations with their owner, all the complexity of that and the trauma that's handed down through generations. Someone on the back here has said Jones's language is subtle and sinewy, which I think is a great way of describing her prose. It's like kind of Toni Morrison, but slightly easier to read, less kind of thick, a little bit more pared down. So yeah, I really like this. Then we have, I can't remember which one's next, so I'm just going to go with this. We have Henry Dumas' Echo Tree collected short fiction. I actually read the stories that I read online and ended up buying the book, even though it was quite expensive, because I just really loved the stories and I wanted to read the rest of them. I ended up with a copy that is an ex-New York Public Library copy. These are great. These stories are crazy. I think, again, Toni Morrison described Dumas as like a genius. There's just some like magical realism kind of stories in here. There's some Afrofuturist stories in here, kind of way ahead of its time. There's some realism, there's some comedy. Some of the stories read like myths. Some of them read like just very pared down kind of American style short stories. There's loads in here and they're really good. Love this, I really do, and I'm going to use these for my essay because I'm in love with them, and I love that kind of Afrofuturist element, that very early kind of Afrofuturist element, because it's something I really enjoy reading now. Then we have an unusual book, Clifford's Blues, by John A. Williams. This is about a gay black man in Dachau camp, is that how you say it? Who ends up kind of working in one of the houses of one of the officers, the Nazi officers. And it's written in diary style. It's kind of written first person in diary style, and it's got a framed narrative, so someone like finds this diary written on scraps of paper and loo roll and all sorts of stuff, and kind of documents life in the camp and kind of is there to voice African American experience in Nazi concentration camps and to offer like a different perspective. So it's quite an unusual, I've never read anything like it. But yeah, it describes life in the camp, describes how he feels, describes kind of life in the officer's house. If that sounds like something that would interest you, I would go ahead and read it. It's obviously quite distressing at times, so be warned. Finally, one that wasn't on my course, but one I read myself with a thought maybe to write my essay on it, but I ended up deciding not to. But it is Toni Morrison's Jazz. This is something which I said in my vlog I must have read probably about 10 years ago now, when I was like 13, 14. I don't know how I came to read this, and I certainly don't think I understood it very well, but there are one or two images that I remembered when I picked this up, I remembered reading, so it must have stuck with me in some way. It is in typical, I mean, Morrison's writing is just incredible. It's so kind of viscous, full of depth. It's definitely lyrical and rhythmic and kind of hypnotizing and all of those things, especially in here because obviously this book is kind of dedicated to jazz or the jazz era. It's set in New York and it's about Joe Trace, who's in his 50s, is a door-to-door salesman, and he shoots his lover, his mistress, and it kind of is about what happens after that between Joe Trace and his wife Violet, but also it goes back to their lives in the South before they came to New York. you know, the deep psychological issues and trauma that run through their lives. And so yeah, it goes outside of New York, which I quite liked. I think those are actually probably my favourite bits of the novel. It's a really, really well woven story. It's a little gem, this book. It's not very long. If you want to kind of get into Toni Morrison, you've never read any of her before, it might be quite a nice place to start. It did take me, I want to say, like 70 to 80 pages to get into the swing of it again, because it just, I don't know, she can be quite difficult to get into, I think, initially, and then once you get into the swing of it and you just appreciate the genius and the power of the narrative, then it just like washes over you, and it's amazing. So yes, I really, really liked this, and I read the introduction she wrote to this, and she says, like, she wrote Beloved about family love or familial love, and like particularly mother-daughter love. And this one is kind of supposed to be about relationship or romantic relationship love. So that's kind of where this one fits. So yeah, really, really like this. So guys, that is everything. A comparatively short book video today. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and I'm sorry I didn't finish White Teeth. I feel really bad about it, guys, but I just could not push myself through that book anymore, especially because I needed to get this pre-filmed. I am probably away whilst you watch this, as long as things have gone well in terms of my editing. So yeah, I'm going away for 10 days and we'll be back home and doing my essays. So I needed to get this filmed, and I wanted to film it for you guys, but also just couldn't push my way through that book. It drove me nuts. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!